Close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine a door, not a physical door, but a threshold in time itself, a portal of exactly 40 days. On one side stands the person you have been, carrying every wound, every disappointment, every silent tear you have shed when no one was watching. On the other side stands a version of you that has not been born yet. The question that echoes in the space between them is this: what would it take to cross? For centuries, the Sufi mystics have spoken of the 40 days of solitude, the Khalwa, as the sacred window for spiritual death and rebirth. 40 days of retreat, of silence, of facing the self without distraction. They understood something profound about the human soul, something that modern science is only now beginning to verify with its laboratories and its measurements. And this is where the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton becomes a bridge between the ancient and the new. Dr. Lipton, a cell biologist who dared to question the dogma of his time, discovered that the membrane of a cell is not just a barrier, it is a processor. It receives information from the environment and translates that information into biological response. A cell placed in a nurturing environment thrives. A cell placed in a toxic environment shrinks and dies. The environment, not the gene, is the primary influence. What does this have to do with you? Everything. Because your body is a community of trillions of cells, and your mind, your beliefs, your perception of the world is the environment they swim in. If you believe you are unsafe, your cells prepare for attack. If you believe you are unworthy, your biology confirms that belief. You are not a victim of your DNA. You are a victim of your perceptions. Now add to this the work of Joe Dispenza, who spent years studying the brain and its remarkable ability to rewire itself. Dr. Dispenza teaches that the brain cannot distinguish between an experience that happens in external reality and an experience that is vividly imagined with intense emotion. This means that your thoughts, when saturated with feeling, become a rehearsal for a new biological destiny. 40 days. Why 40? Because this is approximately the time it takes for the brain to begin pruning old neural connections and strengthening new ones. It is the time it takes for the body to start believing that a new reality is possible. It is the time it takes for the old self, the one built on past pain and past limitation, to begin to die. The hidden pain that brings you here today is the feeling of being stuck in a loop. You have tried to change. You have read the books, listened to the lectures, said the affirmations, but something deeper, something invisible, keeps pulling you back. It is not a character flaw. It is not a punishment. It is simply your biology responding to an old program, a program written long ago by experiences you may not even remember consciously. The Sufis knew this. They called it the nafs, the lower self, the collection of conditioned patterns that must be refined in the fire of 40 days of awareness. They did not see this as a punishment. They saw it as the greatest gift, because only when you sit in the silence, with no one to perform for, no one to impress, no one to hide from, do you finally meet yourself. And here is the truth that this video will explore together with you. The 40 days are not about getting what you want. They are about becoming the person who can hold what you want without falling apart. They are about dying to the version of you that was built by pain so that something new, something that has been waiting in the quantum field of all possibilities, can finally be born. So take a breath. Feel the weight of your own body in this moment. You are standing at the edge of something. Not a quick fix, not a magic formula, but a journey. A journey of 40 days back to yourself. There is a mistake that almost everyone makes when they begin a spiritual journey. They believe that transformation happens in the crowd. They seek validation from teachers, from groups, from the approving nods of others. And in doing so, they give away the most precious thing they possess, the power of their own frequency. Think about it this way. When you are in a room full of people, you become a performer. You adjust yourself to fit their expectations. Your energy field merges with theirs, and soon you cannot tell where they end and you begin. This is not transformation. This is adaptation. An adaptation keeps you safe, but it never makes you new. The Sufi tradition understood this with terrifying clarity. The Khalwa, the spiritual retreat, is not about running away from the world. It is about running toward the self. It is about entering a cave, whether literal or metaphorical, where there is no audience. And when there is no audience, a profound question arises. Who are you? In that silence, without the mirror of others to reflect an image back to you, you begin to see what is actually there. The fears you cover with busyness, the grief you drown in entertainment, The rage you sweeten with spiritual language, it all rises to the surface. And most people cannot bear it. They flee back to the noise within hours. Dr. Bruce Lipton speaks about the subconscious mind as a tape player running programs that were installed before the age of 7. These programs are not accessible to conscious thought. They are embedded in the very tissues of the body, and they only reveal themselves when the external distractions are removed. This is why solitude is not a luxury. It is a laboratory. In the laboratory of solitude, you finally hear the tape. You notice the thoughts that arise unbidden. I am not safe. I am not enough. Love always leaves. These are not truths. They are programs. And programs can be rewritten, but only after they have been brought into awareness. The neuroscience of conscious isolation is fascinating. When you reduce external stimulation, the brain enters a state of default mode network activation. This network is responsible for self-referential thought, for the story you tell yourself about who you are. In silence, that story becomes louder. It is like a house undergoing renovation. Before the new paint can be applied, the old wallpaper must be stripped away. And stripping away old wallpaper is noisy, dusty, and uncomfortable. There is a metaphor from the ancient world that captures this perfectly. The goldsmith who purifies gold places it in the fire. The fire does not destroy the gold. It burns away the impurities so that only the pure metal remains. Your solitude is that fire. The impurities that rise, the fear, the self-doubt, the old grief, are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that purification is happening. Here is a silent practice you can begin today. Find a space, any space, where you will not be interrupted for 15 minutes. Sit in complete silence. Do not meditate in the way you have been taught. Do not try to empty your mind. Simply observe. Notice the voice that speaks inside your head. Notice what it says. Notice the tone it uses. Do not argue with it. Do not try to change it. Just listen. Because that voice, that endless commentator, is the program, and you cannot rewrite a program you have never heard. The inner desert is not empty. It is full of the ghosts of your past. But ghosts, when faced with compassion, lose their power. And in the silence, you will discover that you are not the voice. You are the one listening. And that listener, that silent awareness, has never been touched by any wound. That is the gold. That is what remains after the fire. There is a belief that runs deep in the spiritual community. It is the belief that if you want something badly enough, if you visualize it intensely enough, if you declare it with enough conviction, it will manifest. This belief is not entirely wrong, but it is dangerously incomplete. And its incompleteness has broken more hearts than any failure ever could. The conscious mind, the part of you that reads these words and forms intentions, is responsible for approximately 5% of your daily behavior. 5%. The remaining 95% is run by the subconscious mind, the vast underwater portion of the mental iceberg that operates beneath your awareness. This is not a theory. This is neuroscience. Dr. Bruce Lipton uses a powerful analogy to explain this. Imagine that you are a pilot flying a plane. The conscious mind is in the cockpit, hands on the controls, believing it is in charge, but the subconscious mind is in the cargo hold, and it has reprogrammed the autopilot while the pilot was asleep. The pilot can pull back on the yoke with all their strength, but the plane will continue to fly south because the autopilot is set to south. The pilot's desire is north, the plane's programming is south, and programming always wins. This is the invisible mistake. You sit in meditation and visualize abundance. But your body, which remembers every experience of lack, every moment of not having enough, tightens with fear. Your subconscious mind, trying to protect you, activates the stress response. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. You are vibrating scarcity while visualizing abundance. And the field, the quantum field that responds to frequency, receives the signal of your body, not the picture in your mind. The Sufis had a name for this dissonance. They called it the battle between the Ruh, the spirit that knows its divine origin, and the Nafs, the ego that is conditioned by the world. The Ruh wants to return to the source. The Nafs wants to survive, to control, to protect. And in most people, the Nafs is louder because it has been practiced for decades. Joe Dispenza teaches that thought is the language of the brain, but feeling is the language of the body, and the body is where manifestation either happens or dies. You can think a new thought in an instant. But to feel a new feeling, to generate the chemistry of joy when your history is full of sorrow, that takes practice. That takes the 40 days. Here is where spiritual performance becomes a trap. You attend the workshops. You wear the crystals. You post the quotes. But inside, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, your heart still races with anxiety about the future. The external performance becomes armor, protecting you from the uncomfortable truth that the inner world has not changed. There is a story Dr. Dispenza tells about a woman who came to one of his workshops wanting to manifest a loving relationship. She had done everything right. She had vision boards, she had affirmations, but every time she thought about love, her body produced the same stress chemicals it had produced in childhood when she was rejected by her parents. She was sending a distress signal into the field, disguised as a request for love, and the field, which is infinitely intelligent, responded to the distress, not to the disguise. This is not a reason for despair, it is a reason for deep compassion for yourself. The body is not your enemy, it is a faithful servant, doing exactly what it was programmed to do to keep you safe. But the safety it seeks is the safety of the familiar, even when the familiar is suffering. The body would rather be in a painful known than in a peaceful unknown because the unknown feels like death. The 40 days are the bridge between the known and the unknown. They are the period during which you teach the body, cell by cell, that the new frequency is safe, not by force, not by willpower, but by repetition, by choosing, again and again, a different feeling, by allowing the old chemistry to arise and choosing not to feed it with your attention, by letting it starve. There is a teaching in the Sufi tradition that is both simple and devastating. It says that whatever you see in another, you are seeing in yourself, but have not yet accepted. The irritation you feel at the arrogance of a colleague, that is your own unacknowledged arrogance reflected back. The judgment you feel toward the weakness of a friend, that is your own weakness that you have exiled from awareness. The world, seen through this lens, becomes not a collection of separate events, but a mirror. Now extend this teaching beyond people, extend it to circumstances, to the recurring patterns of your life, to the relationships that always seem to end the same way, to the money that comes and goes like the tide, to the health that falters despite your best efforts. What if all of it is a mirror? What if the external world is not happening to you but through you reflecting back the contents of your own consciousness? This idea finds unexpected support in quantum physics. The experiments that most people have heard about, the double-slit experiment, the observer effect, point to something astonishing. A particle does not manifest in a specific location until it is observed. Until consciousness interacts with it, it exists only as a wave of probability. The observer, in other words, participates in the creation of reality. Greg Braden, who has spent decades bridging science and spirituality, speaks of this as the universe being a reflection of our deepest beliefs, not our surface wishes. The field does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are, and what you are is not determined by your conscious intentions, but by your subconscious programs. This explains the frustration that so many sincere seekers experience. They change their thoughts but not their lives. They visualize abundance but remain in lack. They affirm health but continue to feel unwell. The mirror keeps showing them the same image because the image has not changed at the level where it matters, the level of the body, the level of the subconscious, the level of what they believe about themselves when they are not trying to believe anything at all. Here's a different way to understand this. Imagine that reality is like an ocean. You are not a wave separate from the ocean, fighting against other waves, struggling against the current. You are the ocean itself, temporarily experiencing itself as a wave. But because you have forgotten your true nature, you fight. You try to change the other waves. You try to control the tides. You exhaust yourself in a battle against reflections. The 40 days of transformation are not about changing the reflection. They are about returning to the source. They are about remembering that you are the ocean, and that the waves, no matter how turbulent, are made of the same substance as you. When you rest in that knowing, something shifts. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And when you change, the mirror has no choice but to show a different image. There is a subtle sign that your frequency is out of alignment with your true self. It is irritation. Frequent, low-grade irritation at the behavior of others, at the slowness of traffic, at the inefficiency of systems, at the imperfections of life. Each irritation is a gift, if you are willing to receive it. It is pointing directly at a part of yourself that you have not yet integrated, a part that is asking for your love. The next time someone triggers you, pause. Instead of reacting, ask yourself a question. What is this person showing me about myself that I have been unwilling to see? The answer may not come immediately, but the question itself shifts something. It turns the mirror from an enemy into a teacher, and in the space of that shift, transformation becomes possible. The past is not a line on a calendar. It is not a series of events that happened and then ended. The past, as far as your body is concerned, is chemistry. It is neuropeptides, the molecules of emotion, circulating in your bloodstream, It is receptors on the surface of your cells, waiting to be activated by those molecules. It is the familiar rush of adrenaline that accompanies anxiety. It is the familiar heaviness that accompanies grief. You carry the past with you in every moment because your body believes that carrying it is necessary for survival. This is the deepest addiction of all. Not addiction to a substance, but addiction to a feeling, even a painful one. The body becomes dependent on its own stress hormones. It learns to crave the familiar chemical bath, even when that bath is toxic. And when you try to change, when you try to feel peace instead of panic, the body rebels. It sends signals of danger. It creates discomfort. It does everything it can to return to the known state, because the known state, no matter how painful, is associated with survival. Dr. Bruce Lipton explains this through the science of epigenetics. Your cells are constantly renewing themselves. Every day, thousands of cells die and are replaced by new ones. But here is the crucial point. If you are living in the same emotional state, the new cells are born with receptors designed to receive that same emotional chemistry. It is reincarnation in a single lifetime. The suffering dies and is born again in the next cell, in the next moment, because the emotional environment has not changed. The 40 days are the period required to interrupt this cycle. They are the time it takes to starve the old receptors and grow new ones, not by force, not by will, but by consistent, compassionate choice. Joe Dispenza teaches that the key to this process is the gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, freedom lives. When the old feeling arises, the familiar anxiety, the familiar grief, the familiar anger, you have a choice. You can react automatically, feeding the feeling with your attention, confirming to your body that this chemistry is still needed. Or you can pause. You can observe the feeling without judgment. You can breathe into it. And in that pause, you can choose a different feeling, gratitude perhaps, or peace, or simply acceptance. This is not about suppressing the old feeling. Suppression only drives it deeper. It is about allowing it to be present while choosing not to feed it. It is like having an uninvited guest in your home. You do not need to argue with them. You do not need to throw them out. You simply stop offering them food, and eventually, they leave on their own. There is a wisdom in nature that applies here, the wisdom of the gardener. A gardener does not pull on the plants to make them grow faster. Pulling would only damage the roots. The gardener prepares the soil, ensures the water, provides the light, and then waits. The waiting is not passive, it is deeply active. It is trusting the process that is too complex to be controlled. Your 40 days are like that. You prepare the soil of your body with presence. You provide the water of your attention. You offer the light of your awareness. And then you wait, not with anxiety, but with the patience of someone who knows that spring always comes. The neuroscience of habit formation confirms this. Studies show that it takes between 21 and 66 days to form a new habit, with an average of approximately 40 days for the behavior to become automatic. The mystics did not pull this number from thin air. They observed the rhythm of human transformation, the rhythm that science is now confirming. So do not rush. Do not demand results. Do not measure your progress by external changes. Measure it by something quieter, by the number of times you paused instead of reacted, by the number of times you chose peace over panic, by the number of times you loved yourself enough to let an old feeling pass without feeding it. These small choices, repeated over 40 days, become a new life. And so we return to the door, the threshold of 40 days. It stands before you now, not as a concept, but as an invitation to step out of the noise and into the silence, to stop performing and start being, to face the parts of yourself you have hidden away and bring them gently into the light. Dr. Bruce Lipton teaches that the cell membrane is the processor of life, translating environment into biology. Your 40 days of conscious solitude become a new environment for your cells, an environment of safety, an environment of presence, an environment of love. And your biology, that faithful community of trillions, responds by creating a new you. Greg Braden speaks of the quantum field as a place where all possibilities already exist. Every version of you, the healed one, the peaceful one, the joyful one, is already present in the field. The 40 days are not about creating something new. They are about removing the obstacles, the beliefs, the fears, that prevent you from experiencing what has always been true about you. The Sufis called this process polishing the mirror of the heart. The heart, they said, is born pure, but life leaves scratches, disappointment leaves a mark, betrayal leaves a scar, rejection leaves a film, and over time, the mirror becomes clouded. It no longer reflects the divine light clearly. The 40 days are the polishing, not adding anything, just removing what was never truly yours. The hidden truth, the one that changes everything, is that transformation does not happen at the end of 40 days. It happens in each moment of choice, each breath you take in silence, each time you notice a thought without believing it, each time you feel an old pain and offer it compassion instead of resistance. These moments are not preparation for transformation. They are transformation itself. Each one is a small death and a small resurrection. And together, over 40 days, they become a life. So here is the final question, the one only you can answer. What if you did not need 40 days to transform? What if you needed 40 days only to remember who you have always been beneath the fear, beneath the grief, beneath the stories you were told about yourself? What if the person you are seeking is the one who has been waiting in the silence all along, watching, loving, knowing that you would eventually come home? The invitation stands, the desert is ready, the silence is waiting. The only question is whether you will enter, whether you will trust the process enough to let the old self die, whether you will have the courage to face the emptiness and find, in that emptiness, everything you ever sought. You are not alone. The universe that created you is supporting you in every moment. The cells of your body are ready to be renewed. The quantum field holds the blueprint of your highest self, and the 40 days, whether you count them or not, are always beginning, right here, right now, in this breath, in this moment. The door is open.